all of the people who bought the book were women giving it to men in their life. And I think that's beautiful, and it also says a lot about where we are. It's one of the reasons why I took my face off the cover of the paperback, because I think there was a lot of resistance to reading the book with my face on the cover.
You find yourself watching the headlines unfold as the courtroom battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni becomes one of Hollywood's most divisive scandals in years. From the outside, it looks polished and professional. Two successful figures fighting through lawyers and press releases. But beneath the surface, it feels like a storm of bruised egos, wounded reputations, and stories that no one can fully verify. You see statements drop from both camps, carefully worded, timed perfectly for impact, and every one of them adds another layer to the confusion. Blake's lawsuit describes moments of discomfort and power imbalance on the set of It Ends With Us, while Baldoni's countersuit paints a picture of manipulation, selective evidence, and a campaign designed to ruin him. You scroll through leaked messages, blurred screenshots, and legal documents that seem to say a lot, yet reveal almost nothing. Each headline feels like a tug-of-war between two versions of reality. In this environment, the truth feels less like a solid fact and more like a shifting current. You notice how fans have split into camps, some calling Blake brave for speaking up, others insisting Baldoni is the real victim of Hollywood politics. Ryan Reynolds' name appears in the mix too, his involvement drawing even more attention to a story already too large to contain. Judges dismiss some claims and uphold others, and you begin to realize that even legal victories don't necessarily translate to moral clarity. The public's opinion changes by the hour, shaped by the latest statement or clip shared online. Both sides seem trapped in a cycle of proving who's right and who's destroyed whose career. You don't know where this will end, but you sense that the case isn't just about two people anymore. It's about the rules of power, reputation, and silence in an industry that thrives on stories, even when the story is real life. You watch as Jared Leto's name starts trending again, and you know it isn't because of a new song or performance. It's because the internet has dragged back old allegations, claims of inappropriate relationships, predatory behavior, and sexual misconduct that have followed him for years, but never fully stuck. Now, with his new movie Tron, Ares about to release, and Fortnite promoting a special in-game bundle featuring his likeness, the backlash feels louder than ever. You scroll through social media and see fans divided, some defending him, saying the timing is suspicious, others insisting that Hollywood has protected him for too long. You don't see any new evidence, just the same stories resurfacing, the same screenshots, and the same discomfort that always seems to trail him. The discussion feels heavier this time, maybe because people are tired of seeing accused stars continue to succeed without consequence. You notice how brands promoting him are trying to stay silent, hoping the outrage will pass before the premiere. Disney, tied to Tron, doesn't comment, and Fortnite's marketing team continues to push the collaboration as if nothing's happening. But the silence only fuels more anger. Threads and TikToks dissect every rumor, old interviews and photos that now feel unsettling in hindsight. You can't tell what's real or exaggerated, but you feel how deeply public opinion has shifted, how the internet has learned to question, to archive, to hold receipts. You realize this isn't just...
Of course, I made It Ends With Us and all these films for a very specific reason, but I also wanted people to think I was a good director or a good actor, and I wanted my place in the industry. And I think I've really learned over the course of the last 2 years that it really doesn't matter. And I've really had the great fortune of
about one man's reputation anymore. It's about the tension between art and accountability, between how much the world is willing to separate talent from the person behind it. Leto's fans talk about his talent, his Oscar, his dedication to characters. His critics remind everyone that charisma doesn't erase patterns of behavior. You see both sides shouting, neither winning. The movie will still come out, the promotion will still roll forward, but something feels different now. You sense a quiet awareness that fame doesn't make the past disappear. It just keeps it waiting, ready to reappear the moment the spotlight turns back on. You see Julia Roberts sitting across from Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live, her smile warm but careful, the kind of smile that hides exhaustion. The conversation turns to rumors, whispers that she's difficult, that she shows up late, that she's lost her edge. You can tell by her face that she's heard them all before. When Cohen asks about drug use, she laughs, but there's an edge in her tone when she admits she tried marijuana once and didn't like it. She says she prefers wine or a vodka soda, and for a moment, she seems to reclaim the narrative. Then her smile fades slightly, and she says what really hurts her is not being called a diva or a snob, but the rumor that she's unprofessional, that she's late to work. You sense how much that one word, late, stings more than any scandal could. You think about how strange it is that someone who's been in Hollywood for decades still has to defend her work ethic. Roberts has always been portrayed as the symbol of effortless charm, yet here she is, explaining herself to an audience that thrives on gossip. She talks about balance, about learning to let go of what people say, but you can see she hasn't let go completely. The laughter in the studio feels polite, cautious. She's still Julia Roberts, America's sweetheart, but also a reminder that even icons have to justify their own reputations in the age of viral narratives. You scroll through reactions afterward, watching fans post clips and comments. Some cheer her honesty, others call her defensive. It doesn't matter that she's been in the business longer than most of them have been alive. People still dissect every word, every gesture. You realize this moment isn't about drugs or lateness. It's about the exhaustion of being a public figure in a world that mistakes longevity for perfection. Julia looks radiant on screen, but you can feel the fatigue behind her eyes, the quiet awareness that no matter how long you've been adored, the audience always wants another story to tell about you. You scroll through your feed and see Minnie Driver's name trending, not because of a new film, but because she's taken aim at the beauty standards that shaped and scarred her early career. She's posted a side-by-side image. One, a tabloid clipping from years ago, mocking her as plain and frumpy, and the other, a current photo of her looking effortlessly confident. Her caption isn't bitter, but sharp, a quiet rebellion against a culture that told women they had to fit into two boxes, hot or invisible. You pause on her words, realizing how familiar they sound in an industry that still measures worth by youth and desirability. Minnie isn't just calling out a magazine from the past. She's confronting an entire system that used to, and still does, decide a woman's value by how easily she can be packaged for a red carpet. You keep reading her thread. She talks about the years she spent believing she wasn't beautiful enough for leading roles, how those headlines stuck in her mind long after the world forgot them. You can almost hear the frustration in her tone, but also the freedom that comes with not caring anymore. There's something powerful about seeing her own the narrative that once humiliated her. She's older now, wiser, and not afraid to name the cruelty that once passed as normal. The comments are flooded with support. Women thanking her for saying what they couldn't. Men admitting they never noticed how language in the media shaped their perceptions. As you scroll, you realize this isn't nostalgia, it's a reckoning. Minnie's post isn't about revenge, it's about visibility. You think about how many actresses were written off in a single headline. How many...
Because most of the men I play ooze machismo, charisma, and power. And when I look in the mirror, that's just not how I see myself. But it was how Hollywood saw me. And over time, I noticed a parallel between the roles I would play as a man, both on screen and off.
Learn to doubt themselves because of a camera angle or a cruel caption. Minnie's honesty cuts through that noise. It reminds you that even in Hollywood, the fight for self-respect doesn't end when the applause does. It begins when the spotlight fades and you finally see yourself without the distortion. You read the headline about Tyler Perry being sued, and for a moment, it doesn't feel real. He's the man who built an empire, a filmmaker, studio owner, and philanthropist, someone often described as untouchable in Hollywood, but the lawsuit is detailed and unsettling. An actor named Derek Dixon has accused him of sexual harassment, assault, and retaliation, claiming that Perry promised him roles in exchange for compliance and later blacklisted him when he refused. You scroll through the documents, the quotes from lawyers, the cautious statements from Perry's representatives denying everything. Each line feels like part of a story that no one wants to believe, but everyone wants to know more about. You think about how the entertainment industry reacts when someone powerful is accused. The silence first, the confusion next, and then the divide. Some people rush to Perry's defense, pointing to his decades of work and the millions of dollars he's donated to charity. Others say this is how power operates, quietly, behind closed doors, protected by fame and influence. The internet debates, hashtags rise and fall, and you start to feel how little anyone really knows. The allegations aren't proven yet, but the damage has already begun. Studios pause projects, journalists dig for more, and fans question whether they can still admire the man whose movies once brought them comfort. You realize that what's unfolding isn't just a legal case, it's another reflection of how Hollywood is still struggling to confront the same patterns it promised to fix years ago. Every new accusation feels like déjà vu, another reminder that change in the industry is slower than it should be. You can sense the unease even in the most neutral headlines, that careful tone, that balance between truth and caution. Tyler Perry denies it all, says he's ready to fight in court. Maybe he's right, maybe he's not, but you can't shake the feeling that the truth, whatever it turns out to be, will leave another deep mark on an industry already covered in scars. You open an article about Jennifer Lopez, expecting another story about her latest film or red carpet look, but this one feels different. It's not a hit piece or a glowing profile. It's an argument that she's never truly been given the respect she deserves. You think about how long she's been around, how she's danced, sung, acted, and built an empire out of ambition, and yet her name is still treated like tabloid material more than a legacy. The piece talks about how critics have always been harsher on her, dismissing her as style over substance, even when she delivered performances that demanded attention. You remember Selena, Out of Sight, Hustlers, roles that showed range, vulnerability, and power. Yet somehow, her artistry always gets overshadowed by her relationships, her looks, her fame. You scroll further, reading how even her latest work, the musical Kiss of the Spider-Woman, has been quietly praised by those who've seen early cuts. The reviews hint that Lopez poured herself into the role, but the buzz online barely registers. You can almost hear the frustration between the lines, that she's still being underestimated after decades in the spotlight. The article argues that if she were anyone else, if her name carried the kind of prestige usually reserved for Hollywood's elite, she'd already be in the conversation for awards. Instead, she's talked about like a celebrity, not an artist. You start to realize that this isn't just about Jennifer Lopez. It's about how the entertainment world measures worth, how success for women, especially women of color, still comes with a quiet asterisk. You think about how many times she's reinvented herself, how often she's had to prove she's more than a headline, and how that resilience is its own form of genius. Watching her continue to create, to perform, to push back against every label that tries to box her in, it feels less like survival and more like defiance. You can sense that behind the glamour, behind the glow, there's still a fire that refuses to dim, even when the world keeps trying to look away. You see the post, and your heart sinks. Actress Kimberly Habert Gregory has passed away at just 52. The news spreads quietly at first, shared by friends, colleagues, and fans who remember her as one of those rare performers who could turn even a small role into something unforgettable. You scroll through the tributes, clips from vice principals, moments from 5 days at Memorial, and stills of her smiling on red carpets that now feel impossibly far away. Everyone talks about her warmth, her presence, the way she brought humanity to every character she touched. You can feel the loss ripple across timelines, gentle but heavy, the kind that doesn't come with scandal or controversy, just genuine grief. You think about how someone like Kimberly often exists just under the surface of fame, not quite a household name, but essential to every project she was in. Her co-stars describe her as a force, both on set and off, someone who gave her all even when the spotlight wasn't centered on her. You can almost hear her voice in those scenes again, the calm authority that made her characters feel real. There's something striking about how the industry talks about her now, using words like respected, beloved, underrated. It's the kind of praise that often arrives too late, after the noise has quieted. As you scroll through the condolences, you see how much she meant to people who never even met her. Students from the theater programs where she taught share stories of how she pushed them to believe in themselves. themselves. Castmates remember her laughter between takes. You realize her career wasn't about chasing fame. It was about leaving something meaningful behind. And even though she's gone, her work lingers in the small, lasting ways that great performances always do. You feel the ache of loss, but also a quiet gratitude that for a little while, she got to show the world what truth looked like on screen.